tie-in with companies and organizations. And we're delighted today to be joined by Natasha Kinsella from Regional Skills Dublin, who's going to give a presentation on the opportunities to engage with education, training, upskilling, particularly focused on the Dublin region, but obviously will have relevance to all companies across the sector as well. So I think without further ado, I'm going to introduce Natasha. And Natasha has a very interesting background, both in the hospitality sector. She was CEO of the Irish Hospitality Institute, but also a business development manager with Fáilte Ireland, as well as being business development within the Jury Doyle group as well. So bringing a wealth of experience to what is a very important role in connecting education and enterprise together. So Natasha, I'm going to allow you now share your screen and the presentation that you have, and we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers after that. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Dermot. God, you did your homework too. Okay. So is that screen sharing now?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. It's on full view. Okay. Again, just to note, thanks to Bill and Dermot for allowing me the opportunity to link in today. It's a real chance, I suppose, to put the faces to the names and allow the businesses know that we're here to support them. But that probably most of you are aware of Denise, who's been heavily involved from the West region in this particular network. So there are more than one of Denise, let's say, around the region. So I look after the Dublin region. Hence the slide here, just as an intro. It gives you an indication. Dublin is probably slightly different than most of the other regions, purely because of the scale. I would have all education providers from all university level, IoT level, and TU Dublin, obviously, and further education providers. So there's a mix, over 11 of those on the forum. And then obviously the business partners who are heavily involved. So the structure is slightly different in that we have the main core of the fora with all those partners identified on the screen there. But then we do have sectoral groups. And because, again, as Dermot noted, most of the times I find that the needs in Dublin reflect equally the national needs. So most of the time the provisions, I will cover what's available nationally, while there would be some specific in Dublin from some of the providers in Dublin. But to give you again context, because I think this is important from a business perspective, we appreciate and completely understand from a business perspective, even prior to COVID, your priorities is running your business most of the time, and our target is the SME category, but most of the time SMEs don't have in-house capacity or expertise maybe to navigate around their skills, or at least take the time to try and find out, make contacts of those that they can link with to ensure that they are taking advantage of the state provision. And that is no reflection on an SME. It's because there's so much out there. Businesses and SMEs are taking the time to run their business. So the department 4 years ago recognized this need and wanted to put some structure to enable as a one point of contact, and that's where the real bones of the regional skills lies. We give that one single point of contact within each region, of which there are 9. As I said, I look after Dublin. The important thing, though, is while you have now a one single point of contact, it's equally important for us to understand and articulate what the skills needs are. We report directly into a unit specifically that influence and direct government policy with the National Skills Council. So any engagement we have with any business, regardless of size, we identify, not using sensitive information about the companies, but we identify within our regions, within sectors and particular companies, what the skills needs actually are, because they change and evolve so much, particularly now, even given COVID, they're changing all the time. So it does allow us to articulate and inform the National Skills Council and government departments, such as the Department of Education, Higher Education, Further Education, and equally the Department of Business, to influence decisions about what supports and skills are required by regions, by businesses, and by sectors. So that's quite important. And how we do that is the engagement with each business. So it's important that that engagement is not just a once-off hit, that it's continuous and progresses over time. The biggest thing then is the greater collaboration between the educational providers. I mean, I tend to find when I talk to businesses, they might know of one provider in their region. They certainly don't know of all of them. And most of the time when you talk about an education provider, they directly always say higher education. They don't even necessarily think of further education. And there's a pool of individuals who are going through further education who allow businesses to connect for that talent pipeline, because not all individuals are going to go through higher education, or at least as they progress from school age. So that allows greater collaboration for access to talent, but also for influencing curriculum, where curriculum might need to be adjusted on the basis of particular needs that arise because of changing technology, impacts on the likes of COVID, or progression and extension of markets within each business or sector. So that's quite important in terms of us trying to understand from the business side what they need, but also integrate that into curriculum that may well meet those specific needs as things progress on. The fourth biggest thing, I suppose, is the structure to help businesses navigate around that system. I mean, like I said to Dermot at the start, it's so hard. There's so much out there, so much available, but still I often hear from businesses who are going through private consultants to pay, and paying a couple of grand's worth for provision that actually exists within the state provision, or exist in providers that are on our forum that is funded or subsidised. So we want to make sure we can navigate around that system for you to take out the time wasting, so that we can point you in the direction to best facilitate access to those funded state providers, and equally influencing decisions where funds are available to target those curriculum pieces using those funds to meet your specific needs. So that's a core in terms of the context of what we do. Like any business, we have our own business plan, and it focuses, all 9 regions are the same, on 4 core objectives in terms of our strategy that we set. And it's obviously mapped to providers within the sectors. So we look at the enterprise engagement piece, and I'll go into a little bit more about that. Information and analysis. As I've said, it's important to articulate what it is that businesses need, that we can then inform upwards and through our education providers to ensure that that need is being met as curriculum is developed or progressed or tweaked. Higher education, further education collaboration. Any individual going through the system at any point in time in their career will progress either linear or any other which way. So it's important that as individuals progress, it allows employers to understand from a further education to progress to higher education, regardless of what curriculum they're undertaking at whatever time in their life cycle and career path, that it ensures a seamless process that the SMEs or businesses can understand. So when a qualification piece comes out that says, I'm qualified at a level 7, what does that mean for a business? The business tends to want to know, well, what does it mean for this individual or graduate coming out? What can they actually do in terms of the skill set that they have to meet the roles that I have from an occupational perspective? So that's quite important. And then the communications piece, probably of all 9 regions, I probably do more in this than any of the others, simply because of the scale in Dublin. There is serious provision available, but a lot of the time I still find businesses don't know where to go to find out to access that provision. So we do have, like any other business, a direct website. All 9 regions have their own website. You'll find on the Dublin side, as you can see, I have a website. It is continuously updated. I'm probably on the back end of the website every day, updating things. But equally, I do an e-zine. What I've been doing over COVID, though, is normally the e-zine would have been done on a monthly basis. I actually now do a bi-weekly e-zine, because bi-weekly I have serious content every bi-weekly issue that keeps individuals, businesses, employees, and the networks that we do communicate with up to date with everything that's upcoming every week. So it is quite important to keep them informed of that. I would say, and I know I talked to Dermot about this in advance, if people are willing, please do share, if you're willing to do so, in the chat room, even your email address. I can sign you up for the e-zine, so at least it keeps you in touch on what's going on. So you hear and see the stuff, but it means it's up to date, that you get it as up to date, that you're not relying on somebody else or seeing a Twitter feed or somebody else distributing out. I can sign anybody up at any stage to the e-zine so that they get the information that I put out. Equally, I suppose, we tend to focus all our activities, our engagement, and anything we do, be it audits, events, on 4 core outcomes. The outcomes are critical for the business. The first one is obviously curriculum. We need to ensure that any individual going through a skills or piece of learning, training, program provision, that the curriculum is obviously informed by the skills that they require from the business perspective. So that's important from a further education, higher education perspective. And most of our sector networks, through our groupings, inform that curriculum as we develop stuff now. You find that a lot of the time, because funding is within the department based on the integration of meeting business needs. Long gone are the days where a degree program or any kind of provision is decided solely for the purposes and by the education provider. It's all about the informing piece from business to influence decisions about curricular and modules and outcomes to meet those skills needs. The second thing, even outside of traditional routes of programs, quick hit modules to meet specific needs based on funding, that I'll cover some later, identifies particular niche skills. So that provision and funding is based on those core skills being identified by the business. The biggest thing is the last two, I think. Graduates coming out, that they meet the specific needs required to hit the ground running for businesses, but also future talent pipeline. I think no matter what sector, and I know it's relevant for this sector, everybody is fighting with a talent pool, and they're all trying to either grow internally their own, but equally access talent as it comes through the pipeline. So it's important through our providers, access to graduates, alumni, that we can build that future talent based on the specific needs of the businesses, sectors and groupings that require it as things progress on. In terms of then COVID, I'll just cover for a minute, because I think this is important for businesses right now. And like I say, there's updates on a weekly basis. I mean, I think I put 2 additional fund releases that were out even this morning. So again, there's stuff every week coming up. The online provision specifically has been really turned around since COVID. And I think this allows businesses where maybe they have employees who are not currently working, who cannot obviously work anywhere else at the moment because either they're on the wage subsidies or the PUP scheme. So obviously those individuals have an opportunity to upskill while they aren't working. but equally for those who are working, require upskilling needs because of the impacts of COVID. So there are online provisions. A lot of them are free, but the companies don't even know about them. So we communicate a lot of that on our detail going out. And then there's also, in addition, for COVID. So we're trying to communicate those out. The other element is skills through the engagement specifically with particular companies who have identified the quick hit skills resolutions. We've been linking with our education providers to do that. And again, we're communicating those. Relevant regional connections. One of the things that I always highlight, the Department of Social Protection, which is called DEASP for short, they have huge, because of COVID and the cohort of those individuals who are now unemployed, they have lots of provisions, supports, opportunities to connect companies, businesses, employers to those unemployed individuals who, a lot of them, are fully trained, fully ready, skilled, but they just lost their jobs because of the impact of COVID. There is funds through welfare to connect and support employers who are taking on individuals from that system who are unemployed. So that's important too. Communications, I noted the easing in social media. I do a lot, probably every day at this stage. The government state supports are again important. And I was saying this to Dermot, there's so much communication going out in social media now because everyone's linking online, but you can be inundated with it as well. What we do is allow that one-stop shop as well. So we update any government state support that has been published on Restart grants, LEO provisions, remote working guides, SkillNet networks. We have them all publicised on communications that we go out, or we can at least allow connections to be made with the relevant ones. So again, you don't have to try and navigate all of those to try and find out, because you'll take so much time trying to find them out. You mightn't find the ones that are relevant to you. I have a link in that slide when it is distributed of the most recent PDF of the supports. But again, that was even done about 3 days ago. It's now out of date. So again, I'll be updating that because of the releases that were done this morning. So we are here to help based on all the provisions and all the state supports, but make those connections in that one-stop shop for you. I'm going to now cover maybe a couple of highlighted things that maybe some of the businesses are aware or maybe some aren't aware. But this year in particular, Springboard Plus and the Human Capital Initiative Pillar 1 were launched. Now again, when I talk to companies and I say, are you aware of Springboard? And they say yes, but their assumption is that this is for the unemployed. It's not. 4 years ago almost now, it's been open for those in employment. And what it does allow, if I can give you the example, somebody can traditionally do a degree under Springboard, which can be either online or in a shorter time frame than a traditional full-time degree program, but it's funded and subsidized. Level 6 for all courses under this initiative is free, and level 7 to 9, which is up to a degree level, is a 10% levy for the employers. That's not something most employers actually know. And what it does allow is an employee who's currently working maybe doing that program that they've wanted to do, but one, the employer doesn't have the funds to fund them, or they don't have the funds themselves, or they can't take the time out to do a traditional full-time degree. So there is an opportunity on Springboard Plus to do that, and it has hundreds of programs. By the figures, you can see it. There's over 11,000 places, 332 courses, and over 300 providers nationally running Springboard Plus programs. Most of them are starting in September, October. So again, what I'd say is this is something an employer can actually send to their employee as a benefit and say, look, you know, we want to upskill, we recognize you need to upskill. Let the employee go on to Springboard Plus, look at what's there, see if they meet the criteria for access to those programs, and get them signed up. Human Capital Initiative Pillar 1, again, you can see the stats there. There's an additional 5,800 places, 93 courses, over 27 providers. In addition to the Human Capital Pillar 1, Pillar 3 is due shortly to be announced. And that's very innovative to meet specific business needs as well. So again, there'll be more announcements on that initiative, again, due out fairly soon, that SMEs can particularly engage with for both themselves and their employees to get upskilling and reskilling. That's funded and subsidised through the educational state providers. In addition, Further Education literally launched their new strategy about 2 weeks ago. They have a massive fund, like higher education, to actually upskill and provide for businesses who are looking for employees to upskill on any areas at a further level. So Further Education have what's called initiatives such as Skills to Advance and Skills to Compete. They are specifically targeted for employers. Again, when I say to employers and businesses, Further Education, well, yeah, that's for those individuals coming out of school, and it's for those who maybe are unemployed. It's as much for employers to access those funds as it is for anyone else. The Explore then is a particular initiative that you might or might not be aware of, so I wanted to cover that. So again, I'll just highlight some of the things. Fetchcourse.ie is a portal that has all further education provision on it. One of the accesses from Solus, they have what's called e-college. E-college traditionally before COVID was for unemployed individuals wanting to upskill. E-college, since COVID started, has now transferred everything to anyone, either employed or unemployed, to upskill in any area, and it's all online. So there's lots of opportunities to allow employees who are currently working, as much as those who are unemployed, to upskill in lots of different areas, facilitated online so they can do it at home in their own time. And it's free, completely free. Explore is another initiative. Again, this was developed from insights within regional skills. So every one of the 9 regions are offering Explore in their particular region. Originally, it was piloted in 2018 and it was specifically for manufacturing. It's now open to other sectors, particularly given the impacts of COVID. So we link with our education and training boards, the ETBs, Further Education, and particularly in Dublin, I have 2 major ETBs who are running Explore this year. Obviously, up to now, we haven't been able to run Explore because obviously it's not like a traditional program. It's an on-site initiative where a consultant from the ETB goes on site once a week over a 6-week period to support the employees who've been identified specifically that are relevant to this program. The cohort we're looking at for this program is individuals over the age of 35 who require specific basic digital skills. And we find, particularly in the manufacturing space, where you take operative levels who maybe haven't got that skill set, who now, because of manufacturing and digital technology, require digital skills even at basic level, where we talk to the employer and ask, identify these individuals and we can support you through this fully funded program, 100%. We give them a laptop personally so that they have it even after the program, to allow them to take the time to upskill. And again, as I said, it's an initiative over a 6-week period that we go on site to the employers, so it doesn't interrupt a huge amount of requirement of an individual outside of the core business hours. We facilitate it very much based on the employer need, and they obviously have to do a project to try and support the business in terms of utilizing that digital skills capacity learned over the 6 week to develop a project that has implications for a company. So for example, we've seen companies in Dublin who have made improvements on the manufacturing line because of the digital skills that the operative level employees who were assigned to this program identified as part of the process of the initiative. We also had other individuals who developed full health and safety mechanisms in their business who are now training other departments in the space. So we've had huge implications on the outcomes of Explore, and certainly want to continue it in 2020. In terms of the apprenticeship, this is another huge initiative that is being really pushed amongst all sectors and employers to engage with. And only recently, Minister Harris, our new minister in the Department of Further and Higher Education, Innovation Research, identified for the first time ever an employer apprenticeship incentive. That's worth 3,000. The employer who takes on an apprentice from March of 2020 to the end of 2020 will receive upfront 2,000 right now when they take on the apprentice, and they will then receive the additional 1,000 in a year's time when they can produce that that apprentice is still working with them. There has been huge developments outside of the old traditional crafts of apprenticeship since 2016. So, you know, there's lots on offer in new areas right up to level 9, PhD level. And this is again a discussion I often have with employers, where they traditionally think of an apprenticeship, oh, that's the craft thing, to be a plumber or a painter or in the construction worker. There are lots on offer from, as I said, up to level 9, even PhD level, where an individual can work and learn with the employer, which one thing I have found with employers who've engaged with apprenticeship and the new programs in particular, it allows them internally to grow their own talent. While they get the commitment of the individual signing up to the apprenticeship, the employer gets to keep them over the duration of the apprenticeship. So there is a consultative call out now until the 10th of September, and that actually facilitates the development of a brand new plan, 2021 to 2025. So maybe even, Dermot, within the network of this particular network, where you find there mightn't be provision in the space for apprenticeship, there will be an opportunity to influence areas to maybe look at new calls for developments of apprenticeship for particular sectors. So that's something maybe as providers, I know in Dublin, most of my providers are putting in submissions to influence the new plan 2021 to 2025. And it's important that businesses engage in that as well. And then finally, just to cover, I mean, I've spoken a lot about, and there is lots more that I could cover, but time obviously won't allow it. And what I would say is it's important to maybe engage with us for a couple of reasons. One, you find out and can navigate that system easily because we're the one point of contact. We can highlight the relevant things that are for you and your business rather than you trying to navigate around that system, which is inundated with provision all the time. But what we do ask, and if there's any call to action after this webinar, and I know I've spoken to Bill about this before, it's important that we can try and articulate through the first initial engagement what your actual skills are. Now, we do skills audits, so we can support a business through a conversation, literally on Zoom over a cup of coffee, to try and help you articulate the skills needs that you require, so that then we can take those away, directly contact and make connections for you with the relevant providers who may already have provision in that space, or certainly have discussions with our education providers at all levels to maybe meet some of the needs that aren't necessarily been covered in the provisions, or most importantly, identify the ones that are funded and subsidised. Now, before COVID, we would have gone out to business sites and conducted a skills audit in about an hour of a conversation, but obviously COVID doesn't allow that to happen. So what we've done is come up with a very, very quick brief online, and it's literally a couple of questions, online form that does exactly what this screenshot is saying it can do for you, to allow us initially to link and engage with you, try and articulate those needs, but then take those and try and meet and come up with resolutions to meet your specific needs. So all 9 regions have this form now available to you. You can go on very easily on your relevant regional contact, and this is the Dublin one. There are 4 core sections, but I'm only highlighting 2 because you can see how easy it is. Section 2 literally covers skills and talent. All we want to know is, do you have urgent needs? Most of the time it's a yes. The impact on production, to then identify and articulate the impact on employees and the upskilling requirements for those employees. And section 3 then literally covers vacancies. I think what's important for us to understand and articulate is what type of vacancies, because of skill sets, that you are looking to fill. Now, again, most of the time when I have conversations with SMEs, the distinction between upskilling those who are already working with you is important as one aspect, but then the second aspect is trying to articulate the occupational roles that you currently have difficulty filling, because that is from a new talent pool, and that requires possibly other skill sets to access other talent pools to try and fill those gaps. So the 2 areas can be covered on that basis. And that form is there. It allows you to set the initial contact with us. And as I said, I'm happy to link in with everyone after. So I think I've taken the appropriate time that I was allocated. And as I said, this is the brief intro. There's a lot more that I could cover. But again, while I would encourage individuals on today's webinar, maybe add in your email and we can link in directly to then get into more granular level detail about your specific needs. But I've highlighted my email, my mobile, signing up for the e-zine if you wish to do so, and again, the link to the specific website on Dublin Regional Skills. My Twitter feed is there. And again, connect to that because you can hear about all the other bits and pieces that are updated on a daily basis. And the e-zine, as I said, is bi-weekly. So, Dermot, I hope I've covered in a nutshell what you would like from this webinar. I'm happy to answer any questions from here, if that helps.
Brilliant, Natasha. Thanks very much for that altogether. That was really great. And I think, as Bill had mentioned in one of his email exchanges with you, the amount of opportunities and training that's available now, like you said, a lot of them fully funded. So just to pick up on a few, we've done some of the, I think some of the companies have done the Explore one and have had great success with that.
Great.
So I think through Denise, there has been some uptake on that in the last year's
course. Yeah.
I think the opportunities there in the apprenticeship side is amazing.
Self-learn skills, maybe, and are operating things like CNCs, but don't have the basics, digital technologies behind them, and skills to maybe, set up Excel spreadsheets or work on, even simple things like saving files. So that's really great. Just another thing, I suppose, just to pick up on the HCI call, GMIT have submitted under HCI Pillar 3 something for the IWFM. So I'm delighted to hear that that's still maybe in progress, because I thought that one might be pulled. I think we were all expecting Pillar 1 and 2 to maybe move ahead, but 3 maybe to be paused. So I'm delighted to know that that's still moving through the approval system.
Yeah, I mean, that's my understanding, Dermot. We haven't been told anything else. And like you in Dublin, we had serious submissions on Pillar 3. And I think the focus on Pillar 3, because it was very much geared towards business, micro-credentials and all of those things, it's a huge opportunity, and hopefully announcements will be made. If we hear anything else otherwise, we'll certainly let you know. But it's an exciting time in terms of other provisions coming through the ranks that are required right now.
Yeah, and the last point I'll just make, and just as more people have joined us, Natasha, just the importance of regional skills for us as a network. We got huge support from regional skills in terms of just providing us with a bit of a structure to get ourselves going. So I think, you know, there's huge value there for companies individually too. We've actually found that really, really useful. So thanks again, Natasha, for the presentation. Just a few questions coming in, Natasha, and people are giving their emails in the chat.
I see that.
We'll capture those. Shamim will be able to take those down for us. And also, I think the easiest thing afterwards for us is we might send out your contact details as well to the network, so people can have your contact details. But just a couple of questions coming in there. One from Michael is just saying, what's the easiest way for someone to make first point of contact? I'm assuming that's direct email to yourself.
Yeah, they can either email me direct, or even I had that link on the skills form. As I said, it's very straightforward. It's not complicated at all. And what it might do is identify initially the particular needs, because most of the time if they email, then I have to go back, I have to ask those questions anyway. But I mean, either or can be facilitated. But in case it's not the Dublin one, just also to say to anyone else, there is a link for every regional manager on the homepage of the main regionalskills.ie website. The link I've given you is the specific Dublin one and my own email, but there is a direct link on the homepage of regionalskills.ie, which gives every name and email address and mobile number for all 9 regional managers. So whichever is easiest for the business, we'll be happy to get communications from.
Yeah, and I suppose one thing there I was going to say just on that, is it most straightforward for companies? Should companies be contacting the skills, the regional skills in their own region? Is that, or do they have access to other regional skills?
Well, they have access, but most of the time what I find is where you're based, the relevant provision. Because I mean, sometimes if a company, you know, let's say for example in the West contacts me, I'll probably direct them to Denise anyway,
yeah,
because the provision in terms of the most suitable location would be the West. So
yeah,
we tend to talk to each other most of the time. But again, you know, if there is something that is a national thing and they do contact me, I'll articulate myself whether it's me or another manager and then point them in the direction anyway. So there's no issue there.
Yeah, and I guess I know from an education provision perspective, so much is going to continue to be go online. It'll be much more flexible, yeah, in terms of its provision anyway. So I guess, yeah, there will be overlap. Ronan Hazlitt from Miranda is asking a question. And I guess I know where Ronan is coming from. Do they have, do companies have to have a program available to them, or will training, is there a specific training need that can be funded? And he's giving the example there of an organization-wide lean manufacturing program.
Yeah, I mean, again, if it's a specific niche that a company has identified, what we do first and foremost is identify, is there already something in existence? If there is, we point them to that direction. If there isn't, then there's a wider discussion about why, and equally, who is best suited to maybe meet that specific provision requirement, and whether there's funding available for that. But I know in the lean side, there's lots of provision. And a lot of the time, certainly in Dublin, what I do find, to reassure Ronan, there is a lot there. It's just the companies don't know it's there or don't know where to go to try and access it. So I'd hope to think that there might be something, but absolutely, if there isn't, that's even more important for us to know, because that influences decision like the HCI, Springboard, and all those new initiatives. That policy is driven because a business has identified something that's not there. A lot of the time we find, even through engagement with companies, that they're saying, oh, I have to go and get accreditation done in the UK. And we're saying, well, actually, that shouldn't be the case. if there's an issue that you have to go somewhere else for accreditation, we want to know about it. And it should be a case that we can discuss it with our state providers who potentially might have funds to do something for you.
And on that, Natasha, is there a Springboard call coming up again? Do you know, is that open soon again, or?
I mean, as far as I know, what they're trying to do is obviously conclude on this one. Springboard tends to come up, but it tends not to come up until the start of the year anyway, that we find out the criteria and sets.
Yeah.
I think traditionally, given Springboard, and because it's even open now to the Human Capital Initiative, given COVID, I can only say most likely there'll be a lot more.
Yeah.
You know, even when Human Capital, it was kind of aligned within Springboard.
Yeah.
So you might find there might be something in addition for 2021 that will be aligned with Springboard. But Springboard has been there for a number of years.
Yeah.
So there's been no indication certainly given to us that it won't continue.
Yeah, great.
Which is great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, yeah, there's going to obviously be continued focus in this area, both with upskilling and reskilling, because, you know, so many people.
Can I just jump in?
Ronan, absolutely, yeah. Ronan Hazlitt is coming in there from Miranda. Hi, Ronan.
Sorry, just thanks. I suppose the person my question was, I know there's a lot out there, but somebody that could signpost us in the right direction for what the best thing is, would be most suitable to the organisation. That's probably what would be interesting from our perspective, because I know there's a lot there, but trawling through that type of information is fine. But if there's something that could, with our needs in tow, that you could find something accurate for us, or somebody within your broader team around the 9 regional centres, would be useful.
Yeah, I mean, Ronan, what it's about initially is having a conversation with you when you talk about lean. What are you looking for in terms of skill sets? Once I know that, then we look at the outcomes of that provision that's there. If there is something, then we can direct you. If there isn't, then we can talk further about linking you with a provider to develop something niche that's required by you. But again, when I say something niche, I'm always cautious by also adding that it has to ensure sustainability and scale. For an educational provider, and Dermot will attest to this, for an educational provider to come up with a specific program that's not in existence means it's required by a wider sector and wider businesses. You'll very often find it difficult to come up with one particular thing for one particular company.
Okay.
And fund it. There might be an ad hoc basis under a skill net or something, and that's fine. But in terms of scalable, funded provision, it needs to meet a wider need. But absolutely, would be delighted to talk to you, Ronan.
Okay, thanks, Natasha. Thanks, Dermot.
Great, thanks, folks. If there's any other questions at this stage, we'll take them. Bill, do you want to come in there?
Well, not really, except to say that I think we as an industry have a job to do with our members in engaging with this whole opportunity. And also, I think very importantly, the apprenticeship thing needs to be got out to the schools. And I think we need to be opening our factories, having open days. I know the COVID now is playing puck with all of that, but at the same time, I think we have to have communication with the schools to make them aware of the possibilities of apprenticeship. Because I believe very strongly that apprenticeship can be the best route into industry. And further education, fine, but sometimes the further education is better taken after an apprenticeship rather than before.
Bill, just to maybe comment, if I can, Dermot, on that one in particular, because I actually sit on the Apprenticeship Council. There's a huge campaign ongoing to target directly schools. The guidance counsellors have obviously been involved. They're going to be involved in this new plan. And you mightn't have heard, even this year, there was what's called Generation Apprenticeship. Now, that was a competition nationally to promote apprenticeship, but it was originally 2 years ago geared towards apprentices who are currently with companies. This year, the competition was open to school students, and there was a huge amount of social media, news feeds, campaigns around the schools direct to get a taster I actually judged that competition. There was hundreds of schools all over the country involved in that. Unfortunately, it came just before COVID. So while decisions on the judging was made, we couldn't have a one-shop event to get them all together. There was supposed to be a Dublin event to get hundreds of students together in Dublin at a venue, but that couldn't happen. But there was still a lot of engagement with the schools who participated, and there is absolutely a specific campaign going to be targeted towards schools beyond even this year as part of that new plan.
Yeah. And another thing I would say there, Bill, and to all companies, and I suppose it's about recruitment generally, there's a great opportunity now because there won't be visits physically to many companies, and even students going out to see companies. That's all unfortunately gone for this year coming anyway. But there's a great opportunity to do live streaming into and do Q&A into a company, particularly where you see products being manufactured, not a 2D presentation, something really 3D, sort of a virtual walk through your company. I think there'd be great take up in schools as well as colleges for things like that. So there are opportunities to promote both companies individually, but more generally the sector as well within career guidance, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that would be terribly important, because I think that too often we put square pegs in round holes by sending them to university first, and then they discover that's not really what they wanted to do. Whereas if they got in and did something practical to start with, they could so many opportunities afterwards to qualify it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose just from our perspective, Justin, we'll be talking about this. We have a meeting next week, but we're moving ahead with year-long placements. We're actually going towards year 3 and 4 in industry fully, so it's a bit like a professional degree. And we did a fairly big consultation on this in January with a lot of companies. And just so people know that there will be opportunities there, both for sort of companies to take on effectively 3rd and 4th year students, but also for companies to engage in the same learning on their and part of that, Ronan, will be introduction to Lean and the first steps along Lean manufacturing as well online. So they'll become much more flexible now, particularly our years 3 and 4 of the programs that we have in Letterfrack, you know. So watch the space, I suppose, is the best thing at the moment. If there's any other questions, be a good time to do them now before we close out.
Just one last one, Dermot. We mentioned about certification. Natasha mentioned there around certification and fire ratings and things like that. Is there any developments in relation to that, or in terms of the support from SkillNet?
Specific to what type of programs, Ronan, or?
Well, we have a query from a customer in the UK who wants to develop a fire rating. We're in the edge banding business. He wants to develop a fire rating associated with the edge banding product, and I have to go to the UK to get that fire rating done. Okay.
And you mentioned the SkillNet network. Have you linked with a SkillNet network specifically for that already?
No.
Okay. So I'd say you're mentioning the SkillNet on the basis of a provider. Could be any provider.
Yeah.
Okay, and have you spoken to any provider in Ireland already?
No. Again, okay. The path of least resistance would just go to the UK option because that was there and we know what it does.
Okay, I think it's important, Ronan, and again, I've had this experience in Dublin where a company is getting certification from the UK. If there is something we can do, I know of an example already where companies are linking on provision, but because the certification is based in the UK, it still requires some of the taught classroom learning lessons or online learning to be done here in Ireland. And we have examples where in instances, some of the ETBs, for example, are linked in with companies to have provision based in the region, but that the certification is elsewhere. So, a prime example of that would be the likes of City and Guilds. So I think a conversation, Ronan, might need to be had, because if you're doing certification from the UK, is there a way of connecting with the providers here that can facilitate something? Because I'm presuming that the individuals you're sending have to do specific skills that are relevant to here, not necessarily always to the UK. Or is all the provision online, or where are they going to classes, all those kind of things?
I suppose it's more a general conversation piece that's been had in the forum before, and Natasha,
Okay.
I'm just introducing it as maybe something that might fit under this, but maybe something else that maybe it needs to fit under a different element, but I just thought it's something worth raising when you mentioned it earlier on certification.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the reason I raised it is because we find that companies who are doing things, certification is elsewhere, but we do want to know, because the providers here should be doing it. Why not if they're not? And if there's something that's required and required certification, well, then our providers need to know about it. So, yeah, any conversations like that, Ronan, is always extremely useful for us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's an issue for the sector. The certification issue is Ronan is talking about, and unfortunately, I know there are some companies, Ronan, that are talking or have set up certification and new testing facilities. If I get their name, I'll have to do a bit of a rummage. I'll pass that on to you as well, if it's any use to you. Okay, folks, I think we're just about to close out. So if there's no more questions, I'm just going to thank Natasha for her presentation and for her time. And as I said, we're delighted to be linked in with Regional Skills. I see Denise is with us as well, both from the West, East, and all the other 7 centres around the country. It's a fantastic resource for us as an institute, but more importantly for the sector and the IWFM. So thank you very much and your time. Bill, I think we're going to be back in around 4 weeks' time. Is that the plan for next? And give people a chance to, I suppose, get back from their holidays. It's quite a difficult time to catch people in August. But thanks, everybody.
Brilliant. Dermot, thank you as well. And Bill as well. And I'm delighted Denise logged in. So rest assured that Denise and myself and all the other managers will work together. So where there's any kind of collaboration pieces amongst different regions, rest assured that it can happen very easily.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Natasha. That was a brilliant expose of the whole situation. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Very good.
And Natasha, you're happy enough with me sharing your presentation to the
Absolutely.